Thanks for coming to the afternoon session. I think the morning went great, and we had some really good topics and panels, and obviously some really good conversations and connection going on. So keep that up. There'll be breakout tables in the afternoon, and really encourage you to participate on one of them. And let us know what your ideas are for collaborations of projects or challenges or whatever. Also, there's a survey in the back, just a little more housekeeping. So if you would fill it out for us and leave it before you have to leave. We'd really like to get your feedback on how you felt the meeting went, what else you'd like to see happen in the future, how this could be even more effective for you. So we have two really great speakers this afternoon. Lisa Pennell, you met already from General Mills. And our first speaker, though, is Jeff Hamaoui, whom we've met over the last year or so through some other NASA collaborative projects. Jeff is an expert in sustainability and public-private partnerships with 15 years' experience exploring business models and unique approaches to social entrepreneurship and impact investment. He currently runs the Cazneau Group that specializes in the Cazneau Collab platform that he'll be talking about today, which really is an accelerator for these public-private partnerships. And to not take any further time away from him, I'm going to turn it over to him to give him full time to explain this model to you and hopefully stimulate some very good questions. So, Jeff, it's a pleasure to have you here today, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Good afternoon. I'm lavalier, and I'm hairy, so if it goes wrong, that's why. Okay. I'm going to sort of pick up where Craig started from Procter & Gamble in terms of how do we move from high concept to actually doing something in terms of open innovation and in terms of collaboration. I'm good at facilitating and I'm good at conversation. I'm not very good at presentation, so please feel free to pitch in. I'm not going to use slides. I'm not going to, this isn't a train, it's a discussion. So just talk, ask, and I'll be very happy to kind of shift around to what you actually find interesting. Just to get a feel for the room, I actually think this might actually be interesting for all of you as well. How many of you go to meetings like this, innovation meetings or partnership meetings or whatever, with any degree of regularity? Pretty much everyone. How many of those meetings lead to ideas that you find interesting, encouraging? Again, pretty much everyone. So we all go and we meet some fantastic people and they have great ideas. How many of those lead to specific opportunities that either your institution or your company can actually leverage? One or two hands, actually. A couple right down here in the NASA square. That's good. This is going to be really the subject of this discussion, of the Collab discussion. I also want to find out some other quick detail points, orientation points with you all. Who has upfront alignment from their organization to pull the trigger on a deal if it goes well? So if you meet someone here today, who has the authority to say, let's go, we'll do this? Okay. There's actually quite a few hands, and I'd expected that because you were hand-picked, so to speak. So we're talking today about innovation, and it's innovation in the context of collaboration. It's not just ourselves as institutions innovating, it's ourselves as institutions innovating with other institutions. So what we're really talking about in terms of collaboration is co-design. It's innovation in the context of collaboration, which is co-design. We're sat here in this room, and I always sort of feel like with the warp speed stuff and all these incredible photographs that there should be inspiring music in the background. It's one of those fantastic NASA moments. Let's just reiterate the moonshot, the sort of the data points that I just find absolutely baffling around the moonshot. First of all, 400,000 people building 2 million independent systems that could not fail to get a vehicle to the moon. It is incredibly humbling for someone like me to come and talk to NASA about collaboration. We have a lot to learn from NASA, and we have a lot to learn from what you've achieved in the past, which is also tremendously exciting. So there's a good exchange going on here. Before we start, Craig also mentioned breakthrough problems. This is very much the type of thing we're going to be discussing with regards to collabs. We're talking about big problems where multiple parties need to come together to come up with a solution. Systems opportunities. This is the stuff that you can't do on your own. This kind of comes with a health warning. Anything you can do on your own, you should do on your own. It's a pain in the neck to have partners. It's very difficult. It takes investment and it takes time. So that's that. Brief introduction to myself. I'm very technically skilled. I have all the qualifications to allow me to do this work. I studied literature and philosophy, and really learned on the job. I've been working at the sort of cusp of innovation, sustainability, and investment for the last 15, 20 years. And this is a job that I kind of invented. I enjoy bringing people together. I enjoy trying to work out how to make that more efficient and more effective. And in 1999, I set up a company to do that online and offline. And then in about 2001, I had a moment where I realized that it wasn't just a neat lifestyle thing, but that there's actually a there. There was actually something valuable there to be doing this work. I was doing some work with a mobile phone company in sub-Saharan Africa, and we were looking at collaboration opportunities around a very specific sustainability challenge. So you're in Kenya. We were trying to work out how to provide a mobile banking platform to the rural poor. It sounds easy, right? It's one of those no-brainers. Yeah, of course, we've got smartphones, and this is back in 2001. Put the phone in the hands of the poor. They're going to have banking services. They're going to be able to generate credit. They're going to be able to generate some kind of financial profile that they can then leverage onwards. Sounds easy, but I need a data company. I need a finance company, like a bank of some description, someone who's actually got the legal authority to do banking. I need a databasing sort of local IT company. I need a microfinance company. I need government approval, policy. All of this stuff has to line up to make this happen, which means it doesn't happen. By and large, these opportunities, because they require so many different players, don't occur. It was a privilege. I was involved. I didn't really sort of execute, but the light came on. I was like, wow, there is real power to these synergies. If you can bring people together in concert, you can have massive impact on people's lives. You can create greenfield business opportunities, and you can change the world. This was genuinely what was exciting to me about it. The problem was that the process for getting there was just horrible. It was like, hey, I know this guy who knows this guy, and we're going to get together, and there's this guy in the government, and he might know something about this. It's just this sort of very linear, who do you know, what do you know kind of process. So the challenge for us was, how do you build products and services that go from the sort of the big idea to actual execution, to bringing that system together, to bringing those people together that can actually execute against a challenge. Incidentally, I did do some work with Procter & Gamble as well, and fascinating, within P&G, within GE as well, who's in the room, in emerging markets, having to bring people and corral people from within the company on behalf of the company. So it's not just external collaboration that was an issue, it was internal collaboration as well. So I thought we would be in a smaller room. It's kind of crazy, big room. So I was going to draw on walls, but we're not going to do that. So I'll use my arms and stuff like that. We've been talking, Kareem had that big funnel up. This is the sort of the open innovation funnel. Ideas come streaming down, sometimes 10, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of ideas. You do this sort of cherry picking of ideas. we call it the sort of the big idea harvest. Because this isn't a formal sort of locked-in presentation, I have some commentary on some of the intrinsic, extrinsic value stuff that we were discussing. We find that the process in and of itself, this kind of open innovation process, engagement process, is intrinsically valuable to the staff executing it as well, something that we didn't really seem to discuss in the last 2 or 3 conversations. Engaging with innovation jams, open innovation, sprints, anything that kind of gets people on your teams to engage with new ideas, new perspectives, new communities is incredibly valuable in terms of flexing that innovation muscle, if you like. So there's real value to be explored there. We've had our big idea. We get to the harvest piece. We've got 6 or 7 things that we'd really be interested in collaborating around. What do we do? How do we do it? This kind of brings us to the sort of the business as unusual piece. We're actually all here in this room embarking on a new type of conversation. I sort of prodded Jeff at the beginning of the meeting to say, what's unusual about this? I've worked with the private sector. I've worked with investment, and as an investor, I've worked with foundations, and I've worked with government. And government doesn't do this. Government doesn't do this. You guys are exploring a completely different way of approaching different types of partners. You're inviting in people that you couldn't possibly justify on a sort of case-by-case basis, looking for those sparks, looking for those connections, and so on. And I think that what you're collectively doing is exploring new platforms, new methodologies, and new ways of collaborating, which really address the challenges that we have in terms of a globalized marketplace, limited financial resources, the current sort of financial climate, and so on and so forth. But also, most importantly, as companies, as investors, as government agencies, huge global challenges that we need to address together, that we need to meet together. So the tools for intersection, interaction, and collaboration and innovation, co-design, co-innovation, lots of buzzwords, are going to be critical. So this is a really exciting place to be. I'm thrilled to be here, to be here on this journey with you. My own personal vision for all of this work is to build the art of collaboration. How do we bring people together effectively? There's a science to it, and I think a lot of the tools that we've been looking at, metrics and websites and so on and so forth, is part of it, but there is an art to it. So I'm going to steal a slide of Jeff's. So I would have drawn it. And it's a 4-square matrix, because like Kareem, as a consultant, matrices are very helpful. And it's about the 4 ways to collaborate. And this is out of a variety of the presentations that NASA's been doing in this area. I think it's a really useful framework. 4 boxes. Top left, innovation mall. Top right, innovation community. Bottom left, elite circle. And bottom right, consortium. Those top boxes are online platforms. They're open collaboration type platforms. It's the stuff that we've spent the majority of the morning talking about. The bottom 2 boxes, the elite circle and the consortium, are what I'm going to talk about now. We've got our idea. We're at that end of the funnel. What do we do with it? Okay, it's another drawing. Think of a python that swallowed an egg. Big mouth. That's the open innovation piece, that's the open innovation funnel. And then it has to close down. The closing down process is, okay, we've got our idea, who needs to be involved? How do we get internal alignment? My question at the beginning was around internal alignment. You're coming to this meeting, how many of you have a very clear mandate around the types of opportunity, the types of goal, the types of institutional metrics that you have to meet to make a collaboration viable, whether it's impact, whether it's technological development, whether it's financial return on investment or whatever. these things are kind of critical, right? As you come in, you need to be aligned internally so that you can then meet people externally and understand how to collaborate better together. So our Collab process works together with the different stakeholders, tries to understand what their internal alignment is and their external goals are. The egg piece. So you've worked out what the opportunity spaces are, you've worked out what the drivers, the alignments, and so on and so forth are. The egg piece is where it opens out again. So we had the big open mouth piece, and then you've got the egg piece. We open out again, bring in new partners, bring in different people from across the system, public sector, private sector, investors, thought leadership, academia, innovation, and whimsy. Do not underestimate the value of having those kind of whimsical players in the room, in the system, at the table, sort of throwing down crazy ideas of how this might work. We're talking 50 people here. This is not a big system type of event. 50 to 100 maximum is typically where we work, and we convene them together. At the end of the convening, there's a sort of decompress. Here are the opportunities, acceleration, and close. And I'll get into those phases specifically as we go through. So, and just to kind of delineate the phases more clearly, phase 0 is kind of systems innovation. It's what's the opportunity? You guys are now in a phase 0 type format. You don't really know what you're going to collaborate around, where the innovation or the opportunity is, but you're here to find out. Phase 0 should yield those types of answers to you. We then drive into opportunity spaces, very specific opportunities. In this room, there may be half a dozen. Let's convene the system, let's convene the players, let's bring them together. Specific deals developed, transacted against, and closed, implementation, analysis, impact analysis, and learning. That's basically what a collab is. I talked about the art of collaboration. There's a really interesting paper, and I'll put it up on your website, by a guy called David Lane and another one called Robert Maxfield of University of Modena and Stanford as well. And they kind of baked out this concept of generative relationships. What does it take to create generative relationships? And they have 5 key points that I thought were super interesting. Coherence of strategy. So the people working together have a coherence of strategy towards the common goal. Complementarity of tactics. There's a world of pain contained in that one statement there. Complementarity of tactics means that my operating units, privately or publicly in my institution, are lined up behind this. Executive permission, the ability to pull the trigger. Yes, we're going to do this. There's nothing worse than getting into a relationship, into a collaboration, and then having the string yanked out from underneath you by your boss, or your boss's boss, or whomever. So that clarity up front helps us build those relationships later. Line permission and support and mutual reinforcement. These deals, these opportunities have to be mutually reinforcing. Go back to the telecommunications case in Africa. The non-profits benefited, the government benefited, the communities benefited, the corporation benefited, investors benefited. That's how that system was mutually reinforcing. Research and alignment, so that first phase, first box. Clarity of goals, granted permissions. You need to have your internal institutional permissions to go ahead if you find what you're after. And you need to know that you're going to be backed. If you find it, we'll pull the trigger, we'll make it happen. You need to be very clear what your intentions are and what your internal hurdles are to saying yes and no. Once you have that clarity, then the discussions become an awful lot clearer. If we're looking for deals that have to reach $500 million within 10 years, that means that there's a whole swath of things that we don't even need to be discussing. If we're looking for things that will generate ideas, that means that there's a whole swath of things that we should be discussing, et cetera, et cetera. They act as filters. Knowing what you're trying to achieve as you go into these deals, then allows you to select more clearly and communicate more clearly. It also determines who gets in the room.